I know you're hearing it all the time here, but I'm still in this mode that I want to continue to teach this idea of oneness. Because what I'm observing, sometimes in myself, and well, a lot of times in myself, let's be honest, is that I'm relating to this idea of oneness from the state of by me, not as me. It's like, I get it conceptually, but I haven't actually embodied it yet to the extent that I know that I can. And my guess is if I'm doing that, maybe a lot of others of us are doing that. So I continue this beating the drum of oneness. I want us to get it. I really want us to get this idea and to have access to it, even if we're not there all the time. I don't think that we're supposed to be there all the time, but certainly so that when it's necessary, when it's calling to us, when we need it, we can go there and know the truth. So this is just going to be a big sales pitch on oneness today. I really want you guys to get this. I want to get it. So let's go through it together. And we're going to start with, of course, the thing that you do to get everybody's attention and use an Ernest Holmes quote. So here's my Ernest Holmes quote for the day. Everything that lives proclaims the glory of God. Every person who exists manifests the life of God. There is one spirit in which we all live, one mind by which we all think, one body in which we abide, and one light that brightens every path. The one line that I want to draw your attention to the most in that is every person who exists manifests the life of God. You and I are not a manifestation of spirit. A manifestation is a creation. You are not created by God. Now, pretty much everybody on the planet that believes in a higher deity form, creative force, believes that they were created by it. I want to assure you that's not true. If you're going to look at this idea of oneness, you can't have been created. You are the eternal, forever living experience of God. You are not an expression created by God. You did not start when you were conceived, and you do not end when you take your last breath. You are eternal. You are forever the presence of God. So the way he said that so delivers that to me. Every person who exists manifests the life of God, meaning that as you are living your life, you are manifesting God's life because there's no difference between the two. They're the same thing. That's about as powerful as I can get, but I'm not going to stop there. I'm going to say that's where Ernest allows us to understand this idea of oneness. So, why is all this important? Why am I so pressing this notion with you? Two reasons. There's two fronts for this idea of embracing oneness. And the first one I want to talk about is the collective, this thing called the human race. It's weird that they call it the human race. It's actually the human species. And within that species, there were several races that appeared about 230,000 years ago, they now estimate, around the world. How'd they get there? I have not a clue. I have theories on it, but I have nothing to base that on. So all I know is that there were original placement of Homo sapiens, which is what humans are, in different parts of the world. They expanded and grew in population. They developed cultures, they developed languages, to the point where there are about 6,000 known languages in the human experience. I don't know how many cultures. It's hard to decide what's a culture. But lots of that going on. And so now what we're in the midst of is this turbulent time of trying to reintegrate these races and cultures and creeds and all the things that are going on in the world, because all of them stand separate from this concept of oneness. Because we were raised to say we are different than them. by parents and friends and such. And so we developed this sense, this strong sense in our lives that we were not born with. This strong sense that we are different and that we are separate. Well, we are different, but that doesn't make us separate. That doesn't make us not part of the same thing. Now, when you look at it from a scientific point, what you get is that now quantum physicists and people who study string theory will tell you there's a unified field that is not available to your five senses, but it's there, and in it, there's only one thing going on. It has a multitude of expressions outward, but really, we're all the same thing. Just as Holmes said, one mind, one body. In that unified field, there is no distinction. And that's where we all really are. You know, we play as though we're in these bodies. We're not in these bodies. We're connected somehow. We're communicating through these bodies, but we're not these bodies. I'm grateful for them. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with bodies. Bodies are wonderful. But from this idea of separation that we all grew up with, nobody escapes that, we still live in that sense that we are separate. And you can't have oneness and separation at the same time. You can't play in both those worlds effectively. So what we do is we tend to stay in the separateness, because this idea of oneness is just, it's too abstract for most people to get. You know, at some time or another, most of us probably, you would say, you wonder why there isn't a line out the door of people wanting to come in here and get this. And the truth is, it's just not that easy. It's not that easy. This is the foundational principle of our teaching, oneness. It's not that easy to live in a world that is so dualistic and to claim that you understand this concept of oneness. It's not easy. But it's where we're going. And that's what I mean by the collected. It's our natural direction to move toward this idea of oneness. And several teachers have been teaching this for a long time. It's certainly present in a lot of the ancient documents of religions that are still going and long past. But it's not taught much these days, except in a place like this. Consider this one. This is Abdul Baha, who was the spiritual leader of the Baha'i faith at the turn of the 18th century, or coming into the 19th century. He said, "We must strive unceasingly and without rest to accomplish the development of a spiritual nature in man, and endeavor with tireless energy to advance humanity toward the nobility of its true and intended station. We must all strive with heart and soul until we have the reality of oneness in our midst." Lofty goal, certainly worthwhile. How do you get there? And he did have teachings about how to get there, about how we need to be in service to humanity, about how we need to open our hearts to people who are different from us. It was good teaching. Some people say that's not what's happening in the Baha'i faith right now, but I'm in no position to criticize them. Just the idea that they hold this notion impresses me and holds me in respect for them. So I hope that that's where they're going as well. And I believe that if we are going to move beyond the turbulent adolescence that we now exist in as a species, we're going to have to do this. We're going to have to move toward this. So the more people that are willing to do that, to understand that there is no separation between me and thee, in every situation, and to remember that even when the guy in the traffic is shooting you symbols with his hands and clearly saying nasty things to you that you can't hear, or in any other circumstance where you're under some kind of stress, that's the perfect time to remember this and to live from this, so that we quit having the strife in our lives, so that we can quit seeing someone as less than us or better than us. It doesn't matter which way. Neither way works. None of that works. Now we have, if you look at this from a psychological standpoint, we're still trying to get there as well. We're still trying to find our way in this thing called the human race, the human species, to where we can really get along, we can really respect and appreciate one another. But it's going slow. And the missing piece, according to a number of people as I'm sharing, is this idea of oneness. Even the father of American psychology absolutely believed this. Wrote a book called The Varieties of Religious Experience, where William James, the great psychological teacher of the American way of looking at psychology, said this overcoming of all the usual barriers between the individual and the absolute is the great mystic achievement. In mystic states, we both become one with the absolute and we become aware of our oneness. Now, I'm not sure what he meant by we become one, because my understanding is that we're already one. We always have been. Now, we can become aware of that oneness. That's the work, because the oneness doesn't come and go. But still, the idea that James had that way back in the early 1900s and shared that is very powerful to me. So you've got it on a spiritual level, you've got it on a psychological level. We're looking at it as mysticism, but we cannot leave this to the mystics who spend their time in meditation, in special places closed off to the public, where they simply go inward and spend all their time there. That's brilliant and wonderful. But we have pragmatic lives. We have to go out and earn a living. We have to feed ourselves and house ourselves and have transportation. So we don't get to do that. We don't get to go sit on a mountaintop. We've got to figure this out on our own. So what I want to do from this point is present you with 12 statements, one at a time. And I want to ask you to simply let them wash over you. Let them kind of work their way into you. Think about them. And at least one of them, capture it clearly in your mind and take it with you. They all speak of the same thing. They're not different in that regard. But I think they all stand strongly in this idea that we got to look at our oneness. We've got to work from our oneness. If we can't do that, we're not going to get very far with this. Let me make sure there isn't something else that I wanted to say about that, because it sure feels like I'm leaving something out. Nothing that important. It's funny how when you write it down, you think it's so important. So here we go. Statement number 1. Oh, little picture of oneness. Isn't that great? All right, here we go. Christianity has hardly contemplated the possibility that the whole point of the Gospels is for everyone to experience divine oneness in the same way and to the same degree that Jesus did. Now, I don't say that to criticize Christianity. That's not my point. My point is, if you have this concept of oneness and you go read the Gospels and what Jesus is said to have said, and take a lot of his words, not all of them, but a lot of his words from that perspective, he had this down. He had this figured out. He said things like, I and the Father are one. And then when he was asked how to pray, he said, pray this way, our Father. Now, yes, he was speaking of something that he was giving a paternal characteristic to. I know. Maybe he wasn't. Maybe that was just in the Greek translation. You know? But the fact is, he said, that which is divine and holy and whole and complete and absolute is me. And how do you not know it better as you than anybody else? That's where it starts. And then when asked how to pray, pray knowing that that absoluteness is yours. That's pretty strong. That's good stuff. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. He says lots of things like that. You know, he taught in these parables because he knew people couldn't understand the deep meaning of many of the stories he was sharing. Some could. Apparently some could. Although he got really frustrated with his disciples when they wouldn't get it. He did. It's a passage somewhere in the Gospels where he says, how long must I suffer you? Apparently until you die. Okay, Jesus, that's the way it worked. So that's enough on Christianity today. I got to keep moving or we'll be here all day. Okay, hidden behind explicit differences is implicit oneness, where the allness of life is absolute. Being all there is conceals itself in the form of us. It conceals itself. Because I got a body, you got a body, I got a personality, you got a personality. We must be separate. But that's not the truth. The truth is, there go I. Or as the people of South America said, in Lakin, in Lakesh, in Lakesh, in Lakin. Who was that? What nation was that? Yeah, I'm forgetting too. One of the Central American cultures. What that means is, I am another yourself, and you are another myself. Ooh, isn't that lovely? Doesn't that just call you to respect other people? And when they're acting out, doesn't it call you to see that you have the ability to act out? No difference. When the potentiality of oneness is recognized and applied, it releases within us unlimited strength, unlimited talents, unlimited harmony and peace, unlimited beauty, and most importantly, an unlimited awareness of love. So, do any of those things interest you? Strength, talents, harmony, peace, beauty, love? You want them? Then recognize your oneness. That's the reward. Somebody forgot to turn their phone on. Lacking awareness of the absolute oneness of all life and all form is a serious and dangerous hallucination. It's serious. It's serious and it's dangerous. What am I talking about? If you believe in separation, you're much more prone to want to go to war with another person or another nation. It's that idea of separateness that causes us to get in trouble individually and collectively all the time. When we are in a state of oneness, we can't find that. There's nobody to argue with. There's nobody to hate. There's nobody to try to get away from. There's simply love and peace and beauty and joy. By experiencing humanity's inescapable union of infinite oneness, we can abolish all fear, all insecurity, and pride that underlies all malicious action. Just what I was saying. All of it. All of it. There's no place for it in oneness. There's just no place for it. Humanity's obsessive consciousness of and insistence on being separate individuals is the final and most formidable obstacle to the highest spiritual reality of oneness. The highest spiritual reality is oneness. And it is the most formidable challenge of our species to find this and practice it, to believe it, and to apply it to our lives. We will get there if we don't blow ourselves up. But I think we can. I believe in this thing called the human experience. I believe that we are spiritual beings and that we are all a collective of one thing happening. And when we act like it, life gets really good. When we become aware of our absolute oneness, divine light, love, and joy are the only relevant realities. These are all kind of saying the same thing, but they're really saying it well. Divine light, love, and joy. What if that was your only thing going on in your life? Light, love, and joy. Light, love, and joy. That would be amazing, wouldn't it? It's possible. The gift of a divine oneness means that our mental and physical space-time life, if it is given to a greater dimension of eternity. Yeah. That place of separation, of course, has eternity. Eternal hell and eternal heaven is the way it's kind of written out. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in eternal life. Let's do that. And the place to be aware of that is from an awareness of oneness. The mystic perceives all things as one, all men his brothers, all creatures as his fellows, and all matter as holy. I love that idea of all matter as holy. I love that all ground is sacred. It's just our ability to be aware of its sacredness. Maybe all things are sacred. Maybe all life is sacred. I think so. And from that perspective of oneness, we can find that and we can live from it. Getting close to the end of this, folks. Those who have experienced divine oneness most keenly and intensely, real and profoundly, are intensely real and profoundly present to life. In other words, if you want to have a deep experience of being alive on planet Earth, the way to do it is to remember this idea of oneness and to live from it. That's where the power is. That's where the ability to transcend this mortal experience dwells, in the place of oneness. To be alive spiritually, human beings must consciously experience divine oneness. Without this awareness, one's life will be an empty drudgery. That's kind of icky. But I know there's a lot of drudgery out there in the world, and perhaps this is the path that will remedy that. I think the next one is the most profound for me. Let's see. When we know our true selves as absolutely at one with all, we no longer seek anything from the universe, as there is nothing to seek from that which you are. There's no need. It's already there. That's the essence of oneness. Total confidence and awareness that I have everything that I could ever need to live the life I've come to live and to do the work I've come to do and to be everything I've come to be. So I know that for you this morning, that you are the presence of the divine, just like me. And that we live in a state of absolute oneness, no separation. Your heart is my heart. Your mind is my mind. Your love is my love. It's all God. It's all us. And isn't that a lovely way to see the world? So I hold that for you and invite you to find that for yourself. I love you very much. So it is.